What's up, Ma? How you doing?
I'm doing great, Chris. How are you doing?
I'm good. So it's fun to do this podcast today. As you guys will realize, is this is my mother. This is Candy Bowers. So you don't usually start off a podcast by saying "What's up, Ma?" Um, but yeah, I wanted to bring my mom on the show because, um, Ma, you're probably one of the most influential people as far as like business people in my life, as well as personal. I think very few people get to say that they had somebody who not only raised them in a way that I think a kid should be raised, meaning very loving, always involved with everything that we did personally. Um, outside playing baseball, taking us to everything, teaching us, you introduced me to Jesus, which is one of the most important things I think you ever did for me. But very few get to say like, oh, my mom taught me all that stuff, but then she was also one of the best business people that she ever knew. And I say that not just because you're my mom. I say that because um for 20 years now almost, or I should say probably 25 years of somewhat owning a business, I've seen a lot of business owners. I go to masterminds, I talk to people, and I still think I'm like, man, I think that between like the Bible and calling my mom, that could solve most of your business, whether it's like a real estate business or what you owned, a roofing business, and you own some other businesses. But I just wanted to bring you on first so we could talk about just your past and how you got into business. But I really wanted the listeners to know that like this wasn't a, oh, I'm bringing my mom on. This is bringing my mom on because she was such a good a business person and still is. Even though you're retired, there's still probably some things that you do, or there's still some things that you are doing right now that still have your business mindset involved in it. But let's start back, Ma. From in let's talk about your. Let's start off with the company that you had, right? So you had JLC Roofing, but maybe let's even go back a little bit before that. Let's start at high school. This is
Wow.
probably something that you wouldn't mention to people, but you don't have, do you have a high school diploma?
No, I
Like,
don't.
did you even get a GED?
No, I
So you have
didn't.
no high school, like you're
You
officially a high school dropout.
high school dropout, made it through junior. Well, I completed junior year. However, I don't know if you would call it completing if you went by how many credits you were supposed to have.
So explain that. So why are we dropping out of high school?
Well, I dropped out of high school because I had a child very young, and that's my main reason. Um, I don't know. I don't know if I actually would have finished high school, even if I probably would have went the course, but I don't think that I would have graduated with the class. And maybe I would have. I can't remember everything exactly right now, but just education wasn't my thing.
Okay,
It
so
didn't click.
education wasn't your thing. So I mean, we've got that,
I
right?
cried when I came home from school.
You
If
gave
you
me
want to get down and dirty.
you gave me that portion of school. It was felt to me like a it felt to me
But
like
I
a
also I
federal
also
prison.
encouraged school.
Yeah.
I encouraged it, and I didn't ever think I don't think that I ever brought that up in our conversations just to tell you that you're not supposed to go to school, because I do remember pushing Jason because he was going to be a physical therapist, which he didn't go that route, but I always encouraged you guys to do good in school. But I don't think I also, you know, badgered you, because if it wasn't there, it wasn't there.
So when you say you had a kid in high school, so I think you had I'm the youngest child, and I think you had me around 19. Am I mistaken? Or was it 20?
I think 20, almost 21.
Okay, so 2021. So that's three kids now by 21. So you dropped out of school primarily because you had a kid at a very young age, right? And so that's such an interesting path, mother, because I was telling somebody your story the other day, and I was telling him your story, and I was just like, and they were coming from this school mentality of, well, I wasn't good in school and I wasn't good at that. And I mean, me and you have had countless conversations on this topic, but as I was explaining this, or they were telling me kind of all this stuff on why all these woe or me type stories. I was explaining your story, and I was like, that's so interesting to me how somebody with just three kids by the age of 21 and has to have two jobs and this and that and this and that, how that person could be so wildly successful. And then other people just want to keep that their whole entire life. That's the reason why they never made it. So, okay. So let's go from you drop out of school. So as you drop out of school, what age was that? 17?
Um, yeah, that would be 17.
Okay. So what do we
No, no,
do
no,
for,
no, 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 no.
okay.
It's 16.
16. What do we do for money?
I worked at TGMY at the time. It was a five and dime store in South Phoenix, Arizona.
And so you got that job and that's how, I mean, that's how bills were going to get paid or?
I got that job on my 16th birthday. I was waiting for it. I already kind of interviewed for it before my 16th birthday. And I was hired and knew that I was going to be starting as soon as I turned 16, and I did.
Okay. So now let's fast forward. So I just wanted to set not that we have to go into super detail on this, but I wanted to let people know that we're talking to I think the listeners will know my style is, even when I teach a class or I'm going up in front of people, I always come from this place of like, and you've seen my photos of me trying to get my real estate license. I always start there. I always start there with people because I want people to know that this isn't a world of just like privilege, that there's not maybe we live in a world now where people want to burn down stuff and demand that they get stuff. But like, we used to live in a world where it was, hey, like these are all the things that did not maybe go my way, or this is not how I would have wrote my book if I could write it again. But it is the book. Therefore, it's like that's set in stone, right? That's already done. It's a done deal. But we've got to move on, right? We can change things and we can move forward and we can take a different path. So just wanted to bring that up because I wanted the listeners to know of like having 3 kids by the age of 21, one in high school, dropping out of high school. Like that's a pretty, if someone read chapter 1 of that book, they'd be like, I don't know where this is going to go. Right. But like, we're going to get to chapter like 9 here soon so they can see where it did go. So, okay, let's talk about, you owned a pretty successful roofing company and everybody, she's going to keep this very mild. I already know that's like, she's super humble. So like, I'm the one who will throw out my numbers. I don't know where that came from. I don't know. Like I probably should pray about that maybe a little bit more, but like, she'll be the one that talks very like down on things that are very wildly successful. So how did JLC Roofing, which was your company that you owned for many years, how did that come about?
Wow. Well, not a good storyteller, so I'll do my best. I remember your father always working side jobs, roofing, because he was a roofer. And he would be working the weekends, and nonchalantly, sometimes he would just kind of comment like he's making the man rich, but he didn't say it like that. That's the only way I know how to say it, where maybe everybody will understand without me going in. So I just, said, hey, literally, I remember sitting in the bedroom of our second house saying, you know what? You're a roofer. I was a cashier at that time at Smitty's, which is now Fry's, but went through a lot of links to get to Fry's, Kroger's. And I said, let's start our own business. Simple as that. That's what the sentence was. You're a roofer. I'm a cashier. What do we got to lose? If it don't work, you go back roofing and I'll go back cashiering. However, looking back, you think that was kind of naive or something? Because I have 3 kids. I don't have no savings that I can remember. And we just did it. I told him, he kept on working at his former roofing company. I kept on working at mine company, and I started didn't know what I was doing, had no idea. Started going downtown and thought, what do you have to do to get a business? Naive. Started finding out that we had to have, RLC. He had to have so much education, roofing experience, I should say. And so I started off that way, and I told him, you have to go back to this company, do these certain things. But the scariest part was somebody had to sign off on Dad's license for him to get a license, meaning they had to sign off on his experience. Well, how good do you feel when you're working at a place and a letter is going to come from you from the ROC that you're trying to get your license in the same field that you're working? So that's kind of how it happened. I just said, hey, you're a roofer. I'm a cashier. What could it hurt? But really, we had 3 kids. How are we supposed to feed you? There must have something already been in me with faith with God, honestly, if you want me to be real. I wasn't serving the Lord at that time, but I did know and had served him, or I should say, I thought I served him. I learned later on in life what serving the Lord was. So
Was
that's
uh
how it started.
was that is that Scouty trying to get on your lap?
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, I'm asking you.
But yes.
I
Well,
know
at
I
first,
know very few speakers do I know their life and what room they're in right now. So she's in Oklahoma right now. So is he in the bag or is he trying to get on your lap?
no, he's on his bed. He's not in the bag. He's on his
Oh,
little beds.
I can hear
And
his little
I did.
necklace jingling. I thought he was
I'm
actually
so
trying to
used
get on
to
your
it.
lap. No,
Well, I knew
no,
if I
no,
put him in the living room, he would cry the whole
no.
time. So
Emma's getting ready to come out here and holler my pup. So, anyways, okay. So, was there like that? That's interesting that you just say like kind of naive. So, you guys stayed with your current companies while you built those bits. Like you didn't leave.
we didn't leave right then, and I wished I would have wrote a journal, knew how to write, remember education. So journaling and me don't work because I write the same sentence 25 times. So, it just didn't work with me. It didn't click. So I wished I would have, but no, we did work, but not for very much longer.
But you went in though like I mean, dad worked for a roofing company and then he was going to go start his own roofing business. So like he
Yes.
knew he was starting his own business.
Right. Right when we had that, right when I had that thing, the talk with him, he did it. I think it was just a talk, but I started researching. So then, I told him we have to get a license. You have to get a roofing contractor's license. You're going to have to go to school. I got all the paperwork. So he just started doing that process. We didn't really know how it was going to work out. I'm telling you, that has to be, I don't even know if I'm using the right word, but it's naive to me when I look back now and I tell my story or I think of my story. And I'm not trying to push this on anybody. It had to be God.
Yeah.
Because
So
it shouldn't have worked, but except for hard workers.
yeah. So what once you guys got that up and rolling, what did that look like the first year? Like, so how long did you stay at Smitty's and how long did he stay at his other roofing company working? How long did that go until you guys actually went like full time owning the business?
By the time I should say that I'm going to go backwards just because, we didn't
Yeah.
talk before and it's been a long time. I was already at the bank at that time,
Okay. Yep.
not a teller. I worked in the lockbox, pushed mail,
Okay.
millions of pieces of mail. So I was in the lockbox and I did work it for a little bit longer. And at one point, I just told Dad, we have to stop. We have to just go for it. I can't remember, but I probably pushed a few jobs and he might have, there was a company and I won't mention the name and maybe I should give them kudos for Arizona, but
Yeah.
it was an older gentleman that ran a company and he still would hire Dad to do his difficult roofs. Knowing he was a roofing contractor, knowing he didn't care because Dad did them before for him. In other words, he has a company, he has employees, and Dad would go over and do all his complicated hard tile roofs. And so Dad would still do that for him. And this company, this gentleman would still work him and let him do that. And I would get up every morning and not pound the pavement, pound the dirt, look for licenses and go from there.
So how
But
did that
it wasn't shortly after. It was shortly after.
so how did that look? Because I just remember from being a child, like I can almost tell everybody in real estate, I can equate it to something that we did or something that you guys did to build the roofing company. And it makes you realize, that's the only story I know is like your construction company, right? And then my real estate company. And you realize like if I went and probably looked at anybody's business, whether it was a law firm or a doctor's office or really anything out there, you probably would look at somebody who grew something from nothing to pretty successful. It probably all looked kind of the same, which is like lead generation, prospecting, finding business, getting referrals, having, your volume business and then your sales business. So what did that look like? So you started the roofing company and Dad was getting jobs, right? He was working because we're going to equate this to real estate now because that's most of our listeners. He was working for a roofing company, almost like somebody who worked for a team, right? A real estate agent who worked on a team. Somebody's giving them a piece of business and saying, hey, go help this buyer or help this seller. And we're going to get, some type of fee because we earn this business through our word of mouth or our name. We're giving it to you, right? And we're going to get a fee for it. And in roofing, it was the same thing. He was getting some type of job. It was, hey, Mike, We know that you're a good roofer. We got this work. You go do it. Our name's on it. You're going to do it. You're going to get paid. We're going to make a profit. How did that look like going from someone giving him jobs to now saying, I'm going to go find my own work?
Well, Dad would just do his job. Um, I believe that he only worked at the company he was working at for 2 weeks after, they signed off. And I do know that it was a little bit of struggle and a fight for them to sign off because they didn't want to. He did have the experience. There was no reason for, but it was kind of a bully thing. And so he did sign off. So when Dad worked, he was just working more like a side job, meaning he wasn't their employee. He wasn't doing it as a subcontractor under our license. And I would get you guys ready for school. I'd drop you off to school, and I'd hit what you call your area. I won't mention it on mine because I don't know, but it's in Arizona. And at that time it was dirt. So when you travel around all your area over there, brother's area, we did multiple custom homes over there. I didn't know what to do. I just knew that I had to get in the car and my phone wasn't going to ring if I didn't go find some work. And I honestly didn't know what that looked like. So I thought, what do I do? I had to think. I didn't know. I just found places that were building houses, found a construction sites. I'd have to figure out if they were custom or not. I'd go look at the permits. If there was a number on them, I call them, and I made sure I was there every day because pretty soon they'd start answering phones. They'd start calling us because I left messages. Somebody would be at their house doing one step to their construction site. I'd ask them if I could give them a free bid. So basically I just pounded the streets.
Yeah, so you would go around like areas where they were building custom homes, and you would see they have to put that. Is that like a rule that they have to put that, like their information on the front?
You have to have your permit in Arizona.
Okay.
In Arizona, you don't. In Oklahoma, you don't.
Yeah.
But in Arizona, you do. And let me tell you what I can equate that to in your business. Say you have foreclosures, 91-day list. I'm just being serious. This is exactly what came up to me when I think any business, what would I do? That would you be knocking the doors. They're 91 days late. Go get the work. Help them. I was confident your father was going to put the best roof on it they could have in Arizona. That don't mean you're perfect, and incidents and accidents and stuff don't happen. You don't have to go fix a repair. That means with everything in you, you weren't going to jump off that roof till it was done. So it wasn't really hard for me to go sell myself. So go out there and knock the doors if that's what your forte is. And you're the best, or you're going to help them. You want the best for them.
What was it when I remember being on the back of maybe a truck on a tailgate, and we would drive down the street and we'd jump off and we'd have to go. It was flyers that we were putting on. What was that? Was that for like actual like re-roofs?
Yeah, it was for door knocking. It was re-roofing because we didn't get into the track, what you call track homes, D.R. Horton, Richmond American, stuff like that. We didn't get into that kind of stuff until about the 2.5, third year. You don't get into that. That's just not, you can't just go to a place and get in that. You got to kind of earn your little badges.
Yeah.
So
what were we doing though, where we were jumping off the back of the truck and putting flyers on people's doors?
I went and got door knockers, had them made, and we were putting the door knockers on the doors.
Did you get any work from that?
I got calls, and I'm sure I did work from it. I didn't keep track of everything, but some things worked and some things didn't, because later on I would kind of keep track. But we didn't do a lot of advertising. Once you beat the door and you did good work, they gave your name away. So my favorite saying, referrals, the best thing you could ever have. You're working in vain. If you don't keep your referrals close to your side, you're working in vain and you're spinning your wheels. Just keep them happy.
So what year did JLC Roofing start?
1993. It was 30 years old, June 8th.
So 1993, you start the company. Okay, so I wanted to highlight that for just people that, like Ma, I talk to realtors almost every single day, and
Mhm.
it's this disconnect from like these realtors that are doing really good businesses, and there's other realtors that just can't find any business. And you start asking them, questions like, hey, how many open houses did you do this week? Or how many doors did you knock? Or how many people did you call? Or how, and it's a lot of like, I didn't do that, I didn't do that, I didn't do that. And then you're just like, are you like, you legitimately think people are gonna knock on your front door and just be like, hey, here's $26,000, you're welcome? Because I have this saying, I say, people have heard me say this all the time. I say it to myself on days where I'm being very whiny, and I'll say like, what do I think? Like, they're just gonna mail me checks,
Right.
meaning like I'll go through a hard transaction or whatever, and I just, in my head, I mentally say like, what do you think? Like, they're like, there's like 50,000 realtors here in Arizona. You think they're just gonna like mail me a check? So like, if I don't have to
Mhm.
go through some difficulty finding a client or some difficulty earning the commission after I find the client, it's just a way to say like, this isn't just going to be given to us. Like, we've got to go earn our unfair share, And so, I mean, but when you sat down and just started like, hey, I'm going to go look at these permits on these houses that are getting built, and I'm going to go do, door knocker type things, that was just something that you thought like, hey, like, we've got to go do something today.
Yeah, I just sit down. I didn't know what to do. So you have to critically think. It's like, if I need a roof, what do I have to have? I have to have a roof, and I have to have the owner. It wasn't going to be as easy. So it wasn't, I don't know. It wasn't, I didn't think, I don't know what I thought. That's what's so strict. You got to get an opportunity away. That's what I always said. I knew I had to do something. I didn't know what that was. I didn't go to business school. Nobody knew me. So I got my clothes on, like I tell you, get your pants on and go out the door and get an opportunity's way. And so, I just started knocking the doors.
So
So I
that was 93. You started that.
was 93. From the
Okay.
day we had our contract, I sat down and how do I get work?
So now let's talk about, so I wanted to talk about that because I just think of like prospecting, you know what I mean? Like, you got into a business that you knew, what's also super interesting is you were probably, do you feel like you were more of the lead generator than dad? Meaning like, he would have been the one who probably got referrals just from like knowing people in the streets of roofing. But like, were you the one primarily trying to do like the prospecting per se? Or was he out like, when you guys started? I know we were doing what we had to go do. But like, was he out there doing other things and networking, trying to find work? Or was he just like
Um,
roofing the job while you were trying to find the next job?
roofing the job while I was trying to find the right job. Dad don't that I mean, he's not a lead generator. That's not in him. And it's truthfully like it's nothing I took to school for. There's just something in me that says, how do you solve this problem? I didn't know that, but that's what I do. So I don't care what business it is.
Did you ever feel like you had to get on the roof and roof it because you sold it?
No.
Like, did you, when we put the door knocker on, and someone called you and said like, hey, or let's say we went to a, you went to a custom lot and you called that person and you had talked to him and you found the person who's building the property, you were telling him, I'll give you a free bid. Then you sent out your main guy, your husband, to go measure it. And then you probably are the one who followed up on that bid afterwards and tried to earn the work. And then once you got the work, you had to go roof it, maybe let's say like 2-3 months later when it was ready to actually roof. Did you ever think like, ooh, I just converted this person who's building this custom home and I got to get on there with my tool belt and actually like roof this house for there to be quality, good service?
No, I never thought that, but I knew I would if I had to.
Okay. Okay.
I never
Yeah.
sold it and I had to get
What
on it.
made you think that? What made you think that you could sell a job that you personally weren't going to go do?
Because I knew Dad could do it. He knew how to roof. I
Okay.
knew that roof. I knew I was sending the best person. We had our jobs. Dad, I mean, he wouldn't even sell a roof now per se. Somebody would come to him that we know after 30 years or call him now on his phone because he got more than just business work. They know his number or something and say, hey, I got a fraud or something wants my roof. I mean, we're doing roofs 2 times now. And here pretty soon it might be the third time because roofs don't last the same amount of the that the manufacturer says it's going to last in the heat there. But, you know, dad's going to take a number down and he's going to be able to, hey, call the office, but selling the job's not his, that's not his thing. Figuring out the next process, that's not nothing wrong. That's not his personality nor his strengths. And I didn't know that that was my strength. As a matter of fact, it was you. And I don't know if I will exactly say it like you did, but we've talked before when they tell us you got to know your why. And I won't go really that you got to know your why. It's just more, why, I guess, why are you doing it? But it didn't have to be this hype. And I'm not saying that's bad. I'm just saying, why I was doing it is because Jason, Leslie, and Christopher had to eat. And so did Michael and Candy. That was my why. My why was, you know, Chris, I have to be honest. It's just like, I didn't think of any of this before I did it. I just did it. We had to have a job. You think business in your head. I was young. Think how young I was. And so I just, I always thought about construction. I remember being 18 years old, opening up my bill drawer and thinking, man, if I just had $1,000. Now I wasn't in business then. I was probably TGY and Revlon at that time, saying, man, if I had, think about this. I said, if I am going to mention one amount. If I had $100,000, listen to what I'm getting ready to say. I could build 3 houses. And after I sold those, I could start building my own houses. So I can remember way back then why that came in my head. My dad was a roofer. I've been on the roofs. I've roofed. Why would I think that? It just was dirt. Construction was in me. But I remember saying that. I was 18 years old when I opened up that bill drawer and said that. And I did build a house later and built and bought some land after that. And I thought I wanted to go that route, but it didn't happen. But I could remodel.
100 G's, huh?
100 G.
You could last 3 months now on that.
I was 18 and I can remember saying that. But that's why I said you got to remember the times, and that's the number I will put out. And I could have probably built about 3 homes. And I'm not saying they would have been $33,000. I'd have had enough to construct them and start this thing. And it was a brief moment. I mean, it was a 2-minute moment. That's as far as it went. And I still say it's part of my story, and another story that when I was 10 years old that goes with the story. And so God's working because you can put the pieces together. And later, 3 years down the road, 1996, I started serving the Lord, where it would be a relationship with them where I knew that I loved him and he loved me. And that was the main center of everything. But then I could start putting the pieces together, seeing how he was in it the whole time. So he already knew the story. I just had to put my britches on and get in opportunities way and work hard.
I just really liked how, it's so interesting how in the real estate space and probably lending, insurance, there's a few industries where I can understand people saying like, I have to do everything,
Mm-hmm.
I really can. I used to not. Now I'm kind of like, okay, I get it. Like I can see where we're more of like a face company and a personality type company where like, I can clearly see in construction, there's not a lot of people who think like the person answering the phone at the office is going to like legitimately be the one doing the work. So I can see where that's a much easier, transition. But I also think it's very interesting how you knew going into it, like, hey, I can sell a job. Like I can sell a job on like me, Candy. I can call this person and lead generate for this work and feel as if I can send somebody out to the job to bid it, come back to me with the bid. I can call them back, convert them with those numbers. And then I can now send somebody out. I can roof that. They can roof that property. Then I can follow up with that person, invoice them for that, collect my payment, and realize Candy never once probably got the ladder out, got on the roof, got the tool belt out. Not saying you wouldn't,
Right.
but that all got done. Check came into the company. You could lead generate, go find another piece of business. And so that just equates into our business so much. I talked to many, many realtors, and I've been through this myself over the years where it's just like we think we have to do everything in the process. And it's just something that's it's such a make-believe story. It's such a huge limiting belief that I see so many people, they stay in these zones where they actually wish they could leverage out some of their work so they could get a little bit of their life back, but they just won't do it. Nope, my clients will only work with me. Nope, my clients will only work with me. Can I ask you a question, Ma? When you came here to Arizona and looked in Black Rock for a house, right? or no, it was Blackstone, not BlackRock.
Blackstone. Yeah, BlackRock. Blackstone.
Different conversation.
They own it maybe, but
We'll bring you on that next podcast when we have that one.
okay.
Blackstone, you came to look at a house in that area, right? And
Right.
how'd that, I mean, because I had people all the time like, I mean, would you have somebody else show your mom homes? And I'm like, well, let me bring her on and tell the story. So, I mean, did you, when Nathan showed you homes that day or two, how'd that experience go?
It was great. He did a great job. And I don't need a realtor to sell me a house. I need them to get me in the door.
Okay. Okay. So,
I mean, I know what I want in the house. I know what to look for,
so
but
you weren't
I
bummed that
can't unlock the door.
you weren't bummed that I wasn't there. And I'm like, ooh, look at
Oh,
this
I was bummed because I couldn't talk to my son,
Oh,
hang out.
look at this travertine floor and look at those blinds and oh my
Get a
goodness,
shirt.
look at this
No.
look at
Matter
this
of fact,
6,700 square foot lot that you
I'm
get.
better if the person sits out in the corner and leaves me alone and lets my mind think. But that, you know, there's different personalities, but still, no, there's no reason. You
Yeah.
need in the door.
When I tell that story, I said I leveraged off my business. I didn't leverage off lunch that afternoon. People
Right.
like they have this disconnect of ooh, that's cold. That's cold. Like you just sent somebody out to show homes to your mom. And I'm like, no, like I leveraged out showing of homes to somebody who's much better at showing homes than I am.
Mm-hmm.
And then, but I definitely didn't leverage out the lunch at 12 when we met up because like, just, you know what I mean? So like I could still sell a home to somebody that I know and it's still a business. And then I can still say like, hey, that's my friend. I'm gonna go to lunch, dinner, vacation with them. So let's go on to, so 93, you started that.
Right.
1993. So let's go to, I've got another story that I want to talk about. Really wanted to pinpoint like the high school story. You can tell I pinpointed stuff where I want people to really realize like, if you could just get rid of this whole story in your head stuff, like you can go grow something super special about it. So I wanted to highlight the not graduating high school. I wanted to start off with like the starting a company and the prospecting section of it. Sounds just like a lot like our business that we run here in the real estate space. Let's go to your debt free, you know, because these are those things where like when you hear people say, I always say like people don't have to say a lot of words for you to know what's up. Meaning when someone says like, hey, I was debt free by this age, like you don't even almost have to go into saying like they had to run a pretty legitimate business because like you've got to not only like make enough money to pay for your overhead.
I always hear that.
You got to make enough money in your business revenue to then pay your employees and then pay the obnoxious amount of taxes you have to pay to then bring money home now into your personal life, then pay for your personal life, 3 kids, bills, Jordans, malls, shopping. Then you have to have money left over. So I really like want to highlight that again. Like for somebody to pay off debt, you got to bring revenue through the door, pay your overhead, pay your taxes, have money left over, pay yourself a salary or distributions, get it now over to the personal column. Now through the personal column, it's got to go through a funnel of now living your family life and all those expenses. And then it has this money left over. And if somebody has enough money left over to buy assets or pay off debt, you usually can say, hey, I think they're probably doing fairly well because they're getting through this whole entire funnel. Most people are living credit cards, right? So it's like they're not getting through the funnel all the way, right? It's like somewhere in the funnel, there's this clog and a credit card's taking care of them. And that's a problem that will expose themselves later that they're going to be very bummed about. So if you can get through this whole entire process without a credit card, and then get through the whole entire process without a credit card, and then have enough left over to do something with it, that's super cool. So now what is this story about? Like what year, first start off with what year did you get debt free?
It was about year 2000.
2000. So you started in 93, 2000. So that took you a few years. And so what did that debt look like that you paid off in 2000?
The debt that looked like that I paid off.
You don't have to say amounts if you don't want to, but what were you paying off so people can see that like this was stuff?
I was paying off a home that we had just purchased 2 years prior. Probably a couple automobiles on the personal side. We had just bought 2 1996. Well, I shouldn't say, because when I started to pay off debt, I had a God moment. We won't get into that, but I had a God moment in 1996.
We probably will.
That's when I did it. So this is referring, I had 2. So you're telling me when did I get out of debt? And I'm going back to what I had when I started getting out of debt. And it was the house, a couple of vehicles on the personal side. And then I had two 1996s that were brand new at that time whenever I started doing it on the business side.
Okay.
And I believe we did. We still owned some property we were paying on some property, some land in Prescott, and charge cards. I couldn't tell you what those were now, but I could show you the baggie. That could be on the next trip if you want. If you want little props next time, I could have the flyer and the baggie. But I still saved that baggie of the charge cards. And I think there was
The
21.
ones you cut up?
Yes,
Yeah. You still have them?
I do.
Yeah.
I I had the foresight, or I don't know why I did, but I kept that. I wished I knew how to journal and some other stuff. So a lot of the stuff's in my head. And if I start talking, I could bring it out and I might have to stop. And then as I'm talking, I'll say, no, this happened first and about how long. But yeah, so it was 1996 when I started, in 2000 when I was out of debt.
Okay.
And I
So
had a
you just
house,
what
cars.
so you got out of debt and had you ever got loans on anything else since? Like have you been I mean,
I was I was 100% debt free until 2009.
okay.
At that time, we purchased. I'll have to say it was kind of against me if we're just being against it, but
Yeah.
I still do have a partner. You know, it's called your father, and he wanted the roofing company, the building that it was in, and I tried to tell them, you know, you don't have to have a building of your own to be successful. Matter of fact, after you pay for that bill, now that's not true. Now, if you want to be a real estate, a commercial real estate person or something like that, but at that time, I wasn't even. That wasn't my mindset. My mindset was building JLC and what is my P&L going to be, the bottom line when I'm done. And that building was going to make my P&L worse, not better.
Yeah.
Now,
Yeah,
in the long run, it's
you
paid
weren't
off.
looking at it from a long term. That's a good conversation to
There's
have
different.
because
There was different stuff for that and a different way to do it. For me,
mm,
not for everybody, that's fine, but for me and for what I felt like the Lord was leading me,
well,
and it was what I was supposed to do no matter what.
because I think this is a super transparent conversation because most of the listeners know, like I have rental properties on leverage, right? I think I have 20 homes and
Right.
they literally all have a loan on them.
Right.
And so I remember you and I having these conversations. Is what's super, super cool is when I started on this journey, you didn't change your advice that you gave me. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? Even though I'd call you and I'd do the mathematical numbers, it kind of felt like I was a listener of Dave Ramsey calling into Dave Ramsey, and Dave Ramsey was just my mom. And you'd tell him the mathematical equation that it made financial sense, right? And he'd always say, "That's not my model. That's not what I believe." And I always loved Dave Ramsey for that pure reason was because he didn't care what your mathematics said. He would say, I go to sleep at night peaceful, knowing all my stuff's paid off. Meaning, could have my dollar been leveraged out, made a little bit more money? Yes, but he had played a game, I guess, in his past where it blew up on him, right? So I'm sure there's some scars there that I didn't have going into my experience. But like, I just somebody who's super principled. Where, like you said, like I remember talking to you about my rental property. Like I'm just, I tell you my stories and my cash flow and what I was doing, and you would even say like, that's probably gonna work, but that's not really what I would do. And I always thought that was super cool that as I grew up as an adult and I made my own decisions, you still weren't going to, tell me something that was meant to just make me feel good. You're like, oh yeah, like I mean, it sounds good, but I wouldn't do it. And you were always willing to say like, that sounds good, but like, I wouldn't do it. And so you're very clear on that mission of like getting out of debt, really staying out of debt. So I mean,
And
you said, yep.
let me finish that
Yeah,
off though.
please.
On the 2008, we did get that debt. It was paid off in 2013. And no, and we've never, and still to this day, never had nothing since then. And I even think, Dad, your father, looks back and says, shouldn't have did that. It still all worked out. But mine was, and I'm not pushing this on anybody. I will push the Lord Jesus Christ. I won't push, but I'll tell him, number one. I had a God moment. And in that God moment, I didn't know what it meant. And I didn't even know it was one. I knew what happened, but I didn't know that it was until the things started playing out. And when I knew it was that he was showing me that I wasn't supposed to have debt. I wasn't supposed to have debt, brother. I was going to be a quad, however, millionaire.
How'd that journey start? Like
What's that?
what made you think I want to get out of debt?
I had a God moment, and I heard you'll build your house, but not mine. And it did. And I had to sit back and I had to say, I literally sat at the table and I was paying my bills. There was somebody building a fence and a concrete on my side house, and the little one we call the cottage by Jeff.
Mhm.
And I was sitting at the kitchen table because I didn't have a home office. That was the little house we made you get dust drywall off your clothes. And I heard you'll build your house, but not mine. And I was leaning down. I'm like, huh. So I stopped and I just started listening because the workers were outdoors. And I'm like, did somebody just say something to me? Started writing my bills again, heard it again. You'll build your house, but not mine. I'm like, God, is that you? I actually said it after the first time. Is that you? Started writing that and heard, you'll build your house, but not mine. I didn't know what that meant. So I thought, it's still to this day. I was just thinking about that this morning or yesterday. Build your house, but not mine. I always built this house, meaning I gave. I was a tither and I 100% believe in it, and offerings afterwards. And so I didn't get it because we were in a building project at church. And I'm like, but I'm giving. And I did give to the building project. So even to this day, all that don't tie in 100%, but it does. And Dad wanted to go to the library. Remember me? It's not that I don't like school. I didn't get it. So it frustrated me. I wanted to, who wants to come home from school and cry and hate their homework? No, you could hate school and say, ugh, it's a drag, but still you could come home and do your homework. My brain couldn't figure out my homework. So when Dad wanted to go to the Barnes and Nobles, remember those places you used to
I
go?
I
Record
remember
store?
clearly
No.
being in the Barnes and Nobles that day.
So the Barnes and Nobles, and what happened is he was looking for the exact motor number for an El Camino SS, the one that's up on the lift now
Yeah.
today. So that we still have that automobile, but he wanted to make sure when he bought it, because he was going to refurbish it and it was going to look like, he had an El Camino for his first car, so he wanted to SS. So anyway, he had to know what the motor and transmission number was, and I might not be saying it exactly, but this is the part I remember because I'm only the girl remembering what I was going there for. And so he had to know what those numbers were. So when he bought the automobile, he 100% wanted to make sure that it had the original in it. I was throwing a spiritual inside temperature trap. I mean, if you could see a kid jumping on the ground saying, just having a fit, I was having that inside because I was so mad. I'm thinking, what am I going to do at this bookstore? Good. I didn't know how to use the little, hey, you want to be transparent, Chris? I hope you don't care I didn't know how to use the library things in the library. I just go to the library, tell them what I want. Even to this day, I know how to use it now, but I'm saying, I'm still going to go to the library and say, hey, where's the financial section? That way. I'm too busy now. Just point me the way I need for my toilet paper. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
So I didn't know what to do. So what I do, I'm going to look for a magazine to learn how to hey, let me go figure out how they're decorating houses. I didn't know what to do in there. So I found that. And when I started looking at country magazines, how to decorate your house, I leaned on the rack. When I leaned on the rack on the other side, there was financial books. How to cut your mortgage in half. How to, I'm like, never thought of that in my life. Never thought, hey, you're not supposed to have debt. Never thought. So then I start looking at the decorating books, and then something kept on pulling me back to so pretty soon I had a stack of decorating books, a stack of books. And in my head, I'm saying, don't finish looking for whatever you're looking for, Mike. Don't finish looking. I need more time. The crazy thing, you can go read these things for free. I didn't know that. I didn't go bookstores. Went in the corner and started reading. I was reading my magazine, and stuff kept on drawing me back to the book. Pretty soon I walked out of there with the $3.99 book, Plug, Mary Hunt, Cheapskate Monthly. It was a budget book. Started reading it that night, couldn't put it down, had to go to work. It's 12 o'clock. I didn't want to put it down, got up the next day, finished it. I was on a mission. Straight to my office after work, worked at work, came straight home, started writing this budget, ripped up a whole bunch of pieces of paper because remember, I don't know how to make a budget. So I made the budget. And because I had that God moment, I don't know what it was. That's how come I could tell you it's God moment. I didn't vary. It's get out of debt. I had known Bible scriptures. Let me back up. I was taking finance. I was taking Crohn's Financial Ministry from church all at the same time that I started reading this book. So it just,
Okay.
that's how it just all, and the story's long, so that would have to be another story in increments, and then we could go down that line. But started paying debt. So from 1996, I had that, and never bought another car or anything after that with debt. And I remember right after going and getting you guys your Easter outfit. It was a pair of Doc Martin sandals and a Guess shirt and Guess shorts for you and everybody. It took me 1 hour. I knew how to run in, get your guys' clothes that fast at Metro Center, run out, had your clothes, and then thought, oh, I didn't buy it on debt. I paid cash, but I remember I was supposed to start buying our needs, not our want. I mean, our needs, not our wants. And making, because I was starting to make you guys do a budget. It was late, but the truth is it worked on Christopher. It worked on all of them to a sense, meaning they all understand that concept. They were there, but Chris was there the longest. You were in the car with me. You heard the videos, I think, I don't know, or just you had more time, or it just struck a note with you. But
Yeah, because we're still, I mean, we're still so alike in so many ways. Like I can think of, I come into my office on a consistent basis, and some of my biggest work that I do anymore for our company is just sitting here at my desk, and I have a calculator. Like I literally have the same calculator, a Casio that you used to use at Office Max, costs like, $16 now and not $4. Yep. Like what's funny is I'm going to pull this up. Look, what do you have? Straight up, we're showing on, you're not seeing this because if you're listening to audio, we just legitimately pulled out the same exact calculator and showed it, because like that's ingrained in me that like I've always known that anytime I'm having a problem, I sit with a piece of paper, a pen, and math. And what's so funny, Mother, is in class they used to do like, if John buys 3 apples and gives away 2 but wants 7, how many apples does Charlie have? And I'm like, I don't care about apples, who Charlie is, or anybody else in the story. I'm done. Like, I'm out. Give me a D and let me leave. This is federal prison. So the fact now that like what's funny is we actually solve those in our business. It's like, hey, if you get this many leads that cost $13.80 and you buy 16 a day, and your average cost, average commission, $16,820, how much? And so now like I'm actually playing the mathematical equation in real life, and I get it. But like it took something that made a profit for myself for me to understand and care what Apple or what Charlie we were talking about. Because when they would do those in school, I'd just be like, oh my goodness, you just hurt my brain. One, I don't care who any of these people are, and I don't care what the result or the outcome is. So let me get out of here. But now we can solve it. So like I remember coming down, and I remember it the most in our tri-level. I'd come down and you had this office down there. And just so people know, like, like we didn't have cable TV, we didn't have internet, and this actually was around at this time.
It was new, but it was still there.
It was newer, and every one of my friends did have it, so I knew it was out there. Like I didn't have a cell phone until I was probably 17ish, 18. We didn't have cable. I mean, we barely had a computer that we could use later, just because I think we had to for school. But so like I remember coming down into that office in the bottom story, and you would always be, tinkering around with something and a calculator. And I think it was always like back ending your math on like goals that you were trying to accomplish, and probably how much, if you made at the company, you could get this paid off.
How to get out of debt.
I remember sitting there and, flipping over. I'd get my bank statement in the mail, and I'd flip it over, and you teach me how to reconcile my bank statement. And so like, I just remember all that stuff like to the core of me now, even though I don't reconcile my bank statement. It's like these things that are ingrained with you, which is probably why I was always like pretty good with money. And I just, because like in my head, I just have these principles of like, I know how to reconcile that bank account. Therefore, I just
can't spend more than you make.
Yeah. So it's just, that stuff was so interesting that like you would just do that, and how that changed. I mean, I will forever tell people 2 things. My mom taught me who Jesus is, and finances. And that made my life super simple. Because like just knowing, I was telling Brittany this when we were traveling home yesterday, is I'm like, Britt, we have a pretty cool life. And I say that there's no bragging to this. Like I have so many challenges, problems.
Why?
Such a lot of flaws, and you can say them out loud if you'd like. You would know them. But I just think of like, man, like you can just learn from a super simple, like at a young age, if you can just learn money,
Mhm.
Like if you could just learn, I should say debt, not money. That's a
Right.
whole
Yeah.
nother story. But like if you could
Mhm.
just understand debt and how it's not a game that you really want to play, you
Right.
really don't want to play it. You'd almost rather be poor longer than be in debt quicker. And I'm bringing up some philosophies that I have as like, I don't think most people get ahead because they 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 want to see these results quicker. Like I would rather take until I'm 29 to own a house and not buy it at 21 and have to get in like a ton of debt to never get
Right.
out of it. You used to always tell me that
I
there was
used to
stuff like,
tell you
used to be like, hey, like this can take longer. It might take longer, but you'll be further ahead later. And that one
the
really registered with.
scenario. Yes, the scenario was, and not that like I believe everything I tell you, and I do it. I do it the way I do it because I felt like with what I learned in the Bible and what I learned with Jesus, but more, it was my God moment where I was supposed to get out of debt and he was my supplier. But I told you over and over and over, if you did it, you did it. If you didn't, you didn't. And can somebody really do it? What's the other thing I used to say about the book? I'm gonna have a chapter in my book. It's discipline.
Yeah, yeah.
Title's discipline. It starts with a capital D and the D's crooked. It's hard to go down. So that's what it is. It's discipline. But I used to say, if you started saving at 18 and saved like you're making a house payment till you were 28, you most likely probably own that home scot free. If you buy that house at 18 and you pay the minimum payments because you have to pay the interest on it and you're paying not double, but close, you're paying a lot of money, you're going to be 28, 38, 48 years old. Which one do you want to do? It's discipline.
Yeah.
I mean, everybody's supposed to do it, but that's the way. If you do it, save it before you buy it. You're going to get a lot further in life.
Yeah, I mean, you teaching me that debt stuff, and even though I actually have a lot of debt in my life, but I don't have it on, I
You knew
don't
how
have
to
it on
manage it.
any,
No.
I don't have it on vehicles, I don't have it on credit cards, I don't have it on
Right.
school loans, I have it on nothing that we'd call consumer. We would start leaning in the lane of the Robert Kiyosaki leverage. No wrong or right, in my
And
opinion,
business on
but
business items.
but it's definitely on stuff that turns a profit. And that was something I'm so thankful for. And I would say to like anybody before, like I would teach them money, teach them money, teach your kids money. But here's the thing is your kids they won't learn money from you teaching them. They'll learn money from you doing it. And that's where I think like you could have been one that said, hey, Chris, here's a Dave Ramsey book, or here's this book, or here's Cheapskate Monthly. But it was like, we do what our parents are. We don't follow what they say. We follow what they do. And it was you and I being in that room in your office and us really like I was seeing it happen. And maybe I didn't know like what debt was when I was whatever age, but like I could remember like, oh, okay, like stuff's just not free out there, right? Like, Ma's got to go down there and crunch some numbers on a calculator and then we can go to the mall. It's not just go to the mall. Like, what I mean? Like everything's like, you don't just get like free stuff. Like I do because I'm a kid, but like there's a little bit of like mental work that goes down before like something like a credit card just not pulled out and it just comes to our house, right? And so I want to note this because, and like I said, you would never bring this stuff up. I will, but like when I'm talking about someone who's debt free, they might be like, like debt free, live a meek life. I mean, we did some wild stuff. I mean, I remember when you went to the Toyota dealership and what'd you buy? 7 cars cash?
I bought 6.
6 cash. Yeah, I remember there was four Toyota Corollas. There was
the 5th one was grandma's. We were waiting for it.
There was 5 Toyota Corollas, and then there was a Sequoia you bought for yourself, huh? So you just felt like I should get a.
No,
You
I
should
wasn't
get a
buying
gift.
one. Dad
You
saw
should
it
get
and
a
said,
gift for
"Get it."
yourself.
Huh?
You should get
I
a
didn't
gift for
go.
yourself if you're buying 5 cars cash.
I didn't go there for one. I just, I didn't have, and I didn't need it. I mean, but whenever I saw, I'd always driven a 4Runner, not always, but for the last, and I had the grandkids, and I just thought this will fit the grandkids. So I didn't go there for me a car. I went there for everybody else a car. It
Yeah,
was
but
dad. I think it was dad pushing me to get it because, and I usually don't buy on a fly. Like honestly, that's not what I do. I don't buy that quickly, but I loved it and I drove the life out of it.
But that's what I'm saying. Like there's many stories like that.
Yeah.
I mean, you just went and threw down. You bought each one of us kids a Corolla. I think it helped us all out at what stage. I mean, I remember like that was
you had to turn in your car if you had debt, and then you got the car without debt, and this was your start.
Yeah, and that was my start to real estate, was that car. It was helping Jason out, I think, when he had a young kid.
Getting,
It was
mhm.
helping Leslie out when so it helped us all out at whatever stage we were. And just like the note, like that was go to the dealership, buy 6 cars cash. And there was not a problem with that decision being made. I remember countless cruises where you had probably 12 of us. Is there 12 of us? How many are there of us?
Well,
You would know, you paid for it. I
yeah.
remember going on cruises that, I mean, those had a cost 30, 40, 50,000.
Uh, you're in the 30s.
30s. I mean, so now they'd definitely be 55 or 60,000, right? When today's
Yeah,
inflation.
for all of us.
I
Yeah.
mean, so again, you would do those. We would do those consistently. Those $40,000 cruises.
We did. Yeah,
And
we did the Disney, we did a lot of stuff.
do you know what you told me one time, Mom? Can I
You know
remember? Like,
what? I'm gonna
you know,
tell, I already know what it is, but go ahead.
say it, because we're
Well,
probably
if
on the
it's
same
the same
page.
thing, it's like I want to spend some of the money and enjoy it with my kids. Meaning the inheritance, but you might be going a different way. But on that, that's why I chose to do that, is because I finally said, you know what? I want to leave them an inheritance and a legacy. But I also want to enjoy it with them. And that's when I started making the trips with you.
As we got as we got a little bit older and didn't do those cruises as often, we were having some conversations one time, and I had asked you. I said, "Man, like you spent like a lot of money on those. How did you?" Because that was the era where I was turning more into a giver with my money. So I was
Mm-hmm.
trying to learn something different from you. I felt like you had taught me how to make it. And then I was now open to the stage of my life where I just felt something in me where I was supposed to help more people.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember asking him, like, how did you just pull like 30 G's and go spend like 10 days on a cruise? Like that just came out of your bank account and you knew 14 days that's gone. There's nothing that you have to really, I mean, like it's not like a car that you have to drive for the next 6 years or another
Or
investment prop.
memories forever.
You told me, Chris, their memory, and you had to explain it in my business brain, which I'm thankful you did because I converted it. And you said, uh, memories compound or something like that. You had told me something about like memories are something that you have and they compound as you get older. And like, I really like that resonated with me because I'm like, that is so true. It's like a memory that it's like buying an investment property and over time it compounds and it's worth more. I think that when you're
Mm-hmm.
90, that memory, it's going to compound, I think, every single year, like you said, where when you think back, when you're in Oklahoma right now and you're sitting back, like that has to pop in at some time. Like there was only so many times in my life where I actually had all my family collectively together.
Mm-hmm.
And you know what I mean? So as you're 75, 85, 92, I think that's going to compound and it's going to be even cooler because you're just going to keep thinking of all that stuff. So you said something like your memories compound.
I was
And
just thinking about those cruises the other day. So
yeah, me too. I was going to text you and ask, when are you buying us another round? So I came from a very selfish text probably back to you. But I actually was telling Britt the other day, I was like, we need a reunion of these cruises.
mm-hmm.
And when I was saying that, like, it was literally like, I didn't think of being on my dime though, right? I was like, we need a memory of like the younger years when we were poor. And she was keeping the family dynamic together by, hey, you guys are probably all poor and I'm not. So like, I'm going to keep this party rolling.
I
Um,
literally did those to have the memories with you guys, and because it's your inheritance. I spent your inheritance. Um, but that's what I was thinking, because when I started getting out of debt, it was also planning for my for my financial future later in my life. So that was always in the equation. Like, and I used to have a saying, debt free by 33. Well, I didn't, even start until, but that was just kind of a joke because it
yeah.
rhymed. But it was my goal to say, just go as fast as you could. But
Yeah. So that's cool. I like to hear
I
your
want to spend time with you guys and have those memories. They're very important. Money's not everything. You have to have money to go, but you're also supposed to do with it what you're supposed to, not what you want to.
yeah. So that was, something that was super helpful. I'm bringing up these stories. Like I said, Ma, like I pinpointed a few stories, like I said, from high school and dropping out to how you started your business and placed a bet on yourself to how you, prospected or lead generated for work. And now we're going, fast forward, that took you 7, 8 years of owning a business. Then you were debt free. And then you were able to start really compounding and building, buying everything cash. That's pretty cool to say that you were living a really, I mean, I remember the house that you sold before you moved to Oklahoma. I mean, that was a very nice custom house that you had built. That was cash, right? I mean,
plus
so I just
cash
think of
support
like
and the four properties you sold next to it.
I'm bringing this stuff up because I know my mother never would, but I'm just saying like you've always been very simple, right? Like I remember joking, like you would go into the bank and you'd have your sweats on. I mean, we probably all semi look like bums, you
In
know.
my favorite clothes, I look like a bum.
But that's the mentality you gave me because I remember being at my Desert Ridge house and I wrote down some of my goals, and some of my goals were I wanted my net worth to be millions, but I wrote down like but I still wanted to be wearing a backwards hat on my beach cruiser, riding up to Marley's, which was a restaurant, and just eating a salad.
Mhm.
Like that's just something in my brain. I always thought like
Yeah.
I want a lot of the cash, but I also thought of all the simplicity along with it. Of just I just still want to be the dude wearing the backwards hat.
I didn't want it to change me.
Yeah.
I I
So
wanted it to supply for me.
yeah, so you taught a lot of cool stuff there. So let's go into and we're gonna do like probably one more story or two more stories, and then I want to ask some questions on myself. And this is gonna be funny because I think it's gonna be interesting for people to hear. But so what year did you retire? We'll back that up a bit to getting there. So what year did you officially like retire and sell JLC Roofing?
2016.
So you had the company how long before you sold it?
23 years, I think.
Okay. So 23 years you sold the company and that made you some pretty good coin. I mean, I won't mention any numbers, but for someone who started a construction company, not only pulled a lot of money from that construction company with their profits over the 23 years,
Mhm.
bought a lot of cool stuff with it, invested a lot, gave a lot.
Mhm.
To know that you then at the end of it, after you milked that business for what it was worth to you at the time, and then
Mhm.
were able to then sell it as an asset to somebody else who
Mhm.
then now makes a profit from it. What did that look like? What made you? So what year were you? What year were you when you retired? Or not? How old were you? I should say, not year. How old were you?
53.
So 53 years old, you were able to sell that company and be financially secure for the rest of
Yeah.
your
I
life.
won't say money, but I will tell you I had more money saved than what the company sold for.
Isn't that wild? That's crazy. So, and you sold that for a lot. Like I said, and I won't mention numbers. I don't even know them all, but like it sold for a lot. And so that's like that's so cool to think of just because there's so many people who think that they've got to own a business for the rest of their life. And I even hear some people, I go to some masterminds where business owners, especially realtors, who will say, "Oh, I'm investing almost all my profits back into the business." And I'm like, "What? Like when does that end?" You know what I mean? Like think that through. Like you're in a mastermind with people selling 100 homes a year, making really good money, and they're like, "Oh, I take most of my profits and just invest it back into my business." And I'm like,
Mhm.
"Okay, well, like there's seasons for that. Don't get me wrong. Like we could if we went into detail of your business, there were times where economies change. You had to give back some of the money, right? Some of the profits to keep it going. But when I hear that, I'm like, whoa, like is this something that you like, maybe you want to have it forever until you're 99?
Mhm.
But I'm like, also I'm like, wow, I think that might be a like something that you wake up in 10 years and be like, ooh, like that hurts. Like what what made you want to sell the company?
Hmm. Well, I was tired
Tired.
of babysitting adults. I had had cancer in a few I had had cancer in a few surgeries, but mostly I was just tired. I was exhausted. I was exhausted from I was just exhausted from work. It got the mentality of workers got harder later. I'm not gonna lie. I mean, that's what it is. And I was just tired. I don't know if it was from, you know, raising three kids, having my grandkids, running, I mean, hardcore running that company. I mean, in 2013 to 2015, before that, for 1 year and a half. I'm not gonna lie. Because I stepped out for a little bit and did real estate a little bit with you. When I stepped back in to rebuild, where I wanted it to be and to get it where it wanted to be. And technology had already went so far that I had to learn new stuff and I had to get back into the taxes and, get in the game again. I'm not even exaggerating. I worked 1.5 years straight, 7 days a week, but I still made my church days. I still got to church in the morning on Sunday. I still got to church at night on Sunday. And I didn't typically work on Sunday. And I worked on Wednesday and then went to church, and I still did my duties, but I had a mission to do at the company too. And I think just with the cancer and then just life and thinking about it, it didn't matter how much money I made anymore. It mattered the quality of my life. And I was tired. And I jokingly say sometimes, Chris, you're so much like me. I've said this, so much like me. I said, you're a male and I'm a female, so it might not happen to you. I had 3 kids, you didn't, so it might not happen to you. But one day you might just get exhausted. But I don't know if that's true, because you're not raising 3 kids with it. You got to remember, I went to every sports with you guys. I'd been a mom since I was 3 days before I turned 17. Jason's March 31st. I'm April 3rd. And so that distance, that's when I turned 17. So I've been taking care of somebody all that time. And then I was babysitting men. My job at JLC was, Dad measured the roofs, but I put the numbers to them. I bid them. I put the work out. I made sure the equipment was there, the material, and I was just tired.
Yeah,
so I'm not going to tell people aren't going to get tired, but I also saved for that day, and I could have had a lot more, but money did what it was supposed to do for me. It's just the Lord's my supplier, and I use the money to do it. And sometimes I look back and think I could have still stayed there and still cashed in and made bank. So everybody's got to know what they're supposed to do in life. And I had to pray for a long time. I struggled with it. I had to get peace before I did it, because I told the Lord, I'm so grateful for what you did for me, because I'd have never been able to do it without you. You've been faithful to me. You gave me this. And if I'm supposed to struggle through this and keep on working hard, I'm staying. And then one day I just got that peace, just like I did for Elite Skateboard Shop. And not until I got that peace did I let go of it.
And what's interesting is, and I know I say this a lot, but I talk to a lot of realtors, so I get all these stories, right? And I have a lot of moms who are realtors that I help and coach and mentor, and it's this, they have a different role than usually the man in the house, right? Which is the kids and things like that. And I hear a lot of them, it's it's super hard to be a successful, it's hard to sell a lot of homes and still manage all of this. And I get it. I really do get it. But I also think of you, and I'm like, man, my mom ran a huge company. How many employees did you have at any at one time?
Probably between 80 and 100. Between
100 employees, and you ran, I think, more of the behind the scenes of JLC, if I'm being fair.
I ran the company.
Yeah, and so
point blank, 100%.
And you had us in your house when it was grind mode. That's what I'm bringing up. I was in your, we 3 kids were in your house in the building season of JLC, when it was, football games and me skateboarding, and the time that you probably the hardest time of your life is managing teenagers and building a company. Not saying it got easier, but when you get a little bit more leverage around you and employees, and you get your kids that are now, actually, I take that back. We might have been harder when we were older, but that's another story. But I just look at that. I'm you never once missed one thing. You know what I mean? There wasn't there was never a sacrifice of oh, to build my company, I'm going to miss this, or to miss this, I'm not going to be able to build my company. You straight.
I actually stopped working when I started running my own businesses, when I didn't have to miss anything.
And do you know what I noticed? I can pinpoint this because I think of you a lot when people tell me these stories about having a lot of responsibilities in their personal lives while building a business. And I think of, man, my mom didn't have very much just ever chill time. Meaning this wasn't the Netflix era, right? And we didn't have cable in the house, so there weren't a lot of options, right? But you weren't you weren't out to dinner with people. You weren't at a party. You weren't Sunday. You had to go, do that. You were straight. It was either work or kids. That was my perspective. So if you ever did do anything, it was church, kids, which the kids were usually at church. So it was twofold, but it was church, kids, or work. I don't remember you ever being someone who was very rarely would like we'd watch like a movie or something.
We'd have a day like
But that was like,
Saturday.
but that was collectively like it was almost a family time, and it
Yeah,
was
we
watching.
all
But it
sit on
was
the couch. We'd
you
have
were
it.
never
Yeah.
just someone who like, oh, I need my alone time. It was like church, family, raise the kids, go to their events, or I'm at the office working, and so there was never any like
I
what
didn't
we
know I didn't know Monday from Sunday, Saturday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, what time of day it was,
yeah.
or other than get to church on time.
You taught me that too, because like I don't even have the holidays on my phone anymore. I took that off because some of them I don't even know what they are anymore. And I took that off. So now, like Christy in our office, she's kind of our HR person of our little business. And she'd be like, hey, Chris, we have off this day. And I was like, what? We have another day off? Like, do I get this too? And she'll like now comment to me. She's like, Chris, we get this day off. And I'm
Uh-huh.
like, you're in charge of the HR department. That's why I have you, because in my world, this is called Monday. Like, I'm like, how many Mondays do we get off for these events? And she's like, this one. And I'm like, explain what that holiday even means. And she'll explain it to me. I'm like, we get off for that? This is wild. Like, I wish I could
But
participate in this party.
now, when we say this, because we know the story in the background and the people listening don't, that don't mean we didn't have fun. But
Yeah.
it was centered around God, my family, and getting my job done. Even today, Christopher, I honestly don't know the day between Mondays. I don't know how to quit. Uh,
Yeah.
I'm working just as much or just as hard now. It's just different stuff.
Yeah. Yeah,
Sometimes 10,
definitely.
12-hour days. Sometimes I don't know how not to do it. It's if you see a job and it needs done, you just get it done.
And this podcast is lasting a little bit longer, and I'm still going to
Yes.
roll with it because I have. Do you have to? Do you have a hard stop? You got to do something.
No, I'm good.
Okay, we're probably going to go a little bit longer than expected because I really wanted to make this about you. So I just thought you, just like I said, like I really want to bring it up again. Like you've been such an influential person in my life, and some people could. I feel like people could just say like that's my mom, right? Like, oh, I love my mom, and I love my mom. I love you. But like I'm like there's only so many people that you can say like, man, like I didn't need I didn't need high school. Like I didn't need grade school. Like I don't know my multiplications right now. I tell people all the time, I'm like, I'm about as dumb as a
Well,
person as you'll meet.
well,
I was talking to somebody, Ma. I flew to Vegas to teach these realtors, and openly I said, I was in Cabo, or I said I was in a uh Cabo or Cancun, and I don't know where I was. I had fun. And one said, well, where were you? I said, Cabo or Cancun. I don't even know on like you guys laugh because you guys laugh because you know where it's at on the map. So it's funny. I don't know where any of it's on the map. So like it could have
so
been
much like me.
it could be 4 minutes from each other. So like it was just so interesting. I was like, I was in Cabo or Cancun, and they're like, well, which one? And I was like, this sounds normal. Like for me, this is totally how I live my life. So I'm just super thankful that another thing that I want to say thank you for is how school was not something that you pushed. And even going back, I can say you never once, I don't remember once, and maybe I was living off of my own mental land like normal. Maybe just like I literally tell my own story about almost everything. So maybe you were and you can say different, but I don't ever remember coming home with like a C or a D and ever getting like like talked to about it or that I should do better. And I think that this is because Brittany and I, my wife, we had this conversation the other day. I said, hey, if we had kids, I think that you would have to come into the picture a lot more than myself because I probably would just be like, hey, let's just learn these things. Let's just homeschool them. Let's do these 5 things. These are the principles. And like, let's go on. I'm just so thankful that you never once pushed that stuff. And this isn't for everybody. I know there's going to be some listeners
Yes.
out there that are like, whoa, like that's where I think you should know. I'm thankful that you were self-aware enough to know your child, to think that he could potentially, and maybe this was something you didn't even like, maybe, I don't even know, was there a clear intention on that? Because we're going to go now into a little bit of questions about me that I think might be funny to ask you and publicly. Well, did you know I was like dumb, young, like with school? And I'm going to go school specific. Like, did you just know at a certain date, like this dude's not making it out of this
No,
thing?
I
Like,
thought you were average, but I also was a believer in God and how he made you, how whatever you were supposed to be, as long as you followed him, you were going to be fine.
I mean, but you didn't question things, like you didn't ever like sit back and think like, wow, like is this dude
No, because
really?
I wasn't book smart.
Yeah, so you could just.
I wasn't book smart. And I don't think I probably subconsciously thought of it, but not consciously, meaning it was probably back there just because it's who I was. But I didn't consciously just say I don't want, because if you ask Jason, I told Jason, you have to do this, you have to finish this, you have to do this, because he wanted to go to NAU. His goal was to go to NAU as a physical therapist at first. It changed his last semester of senior year. So you got to remember, he didn't take a lot of electives, and he had to take classes that would get him to a university and not a community college to do what he wanted to do. Didn't probably have to for the first 2 years, but that was his goal. And so on that end, I was pushing Jason. On your end, you weren't going that way. You weren't telling me you wanted to be a physical therapist. You wanted to, there's no need for education, certain education, if you're not going to use it. Now, did I consciously think about it? I don't know. It's just who I am. It's, you didn't today, right now, I'm going to tell people you're going to disagree, and that's fine. But right now, why would you go pay $200,000, whatever it is, to go to college right now, if it is not going to do anything for you? I don't need a social life to learn how to drink or party or have fun or go to the Bible study on the college campus. I'm just saying this seriously. There is no need to get into debt if you don't use it. Now, do you need education? And do I wished I used proper English and punctuated correctly? Yeah, it would be nice. Do I wished I knew how to run the computer better? Yeah, but it's not who I am. So maybe subconsciously in the background, knowing that I struggled, if you're seeing the kid doing it, but I didn't realize, I don't think Christopher is not educated, but I understand what he's saying. He's a smart young man.
Well, I even like was
what you got to do. But if I struggled, Christopher, I cried coming home from school. I didn't cry and not do my homework because I didn't want to do my homework and I was rebellious and a bully. I didn't get it. It wasn't clicking. So maybe in the background like that, you either do or you don't. Now,
I think that's why you. I think that I was listening to I don't know which like the show Shark Tank. I don't know which person it was on there, but they were doing some type of interview I was listening to, and he talked about how many like business owners are dyslexic. There's like a huge percentage of people, right? And it makes me like I know quite a few successful, like uber successful business owners, and I know their past. And I think there's something that actually is like that is why they are successful, because they're almost not able to go to the next level. So I remember like one time my brother was like, hey, like you were smart that you didn't buy all those properties in that era where like they could have foreclosed on you. And I would say, no, I wasn't smart. I didn't have enough money to buy those properties, right? So don't think I did anything calculated. I couldn't buy those properties. I even look at that in that sense is some of these people, it's like they weren't able to go to the next level. So it's not like, oh, wow, like you knew to like dodge that. I'm like, no, I didn't know to dodge that. Like they wouldn't let me in. Therefore, like if I could have,
I wasn't in the club.
I'm giving credit to people who like are very like book smart and know how to do math and write English properly, and they can actually get accepted into the next level. Like if they would have accepted me into the next level, I might have went, right? And then like that level just gets you to that level, and now it has debt involved, and then it gets you out to a job that pays you what it pays you, and then you're just kind of in this trap. Nothing wrong or right about the statement, but like I just wasn't allowed to go participate at the next level. Therefore, I think that's why that's a lot of business owners, because they don't have that option. They can't go spend 4 years in college, right? Like they're not letting them into that party. And so they've got to go out to the real world. And if you still want to make a good amount of income and not be poor, you've got to decide, like, I've got to go find something that I feel that my brain could go do. And making your own money is an option, like creating something, a service, and going out providing a service to people can be super lucrative, which you've proven. So when did you see an entrepreneurial side to me? When would you say that was?
There might have been earlier, but my first one will be the lemonade stand at the corner at 51st.
Yep.
and Peoria
The
on a
lemonade
side
stand, huh?
road.
That thing made some money.
Yeah.
My overhead was low though, because I think you guys were funding the operation of
Right. I
buying the
had the
product.
sugar and the water bill, and we had a lemon tree in our backyard.
Yeah. Yeah. So profits were good when all of your expenses are supplied to you. Is
Uh,
that so? Is that the first sign?
no, did you sell bracelets at school before that?
I I sold magazine.
I
I
know
would
Jason sold bracelets, so
Jay, I think I would buy those like teeny bopper magazines, and
uh-huh.
we would like for like 4.95 or 3.95, and we'd take out like whoever the popular. There was like six really popular people in there. We'd take them out really cleanly, put them in those sleeves, and we'd sell them for like $5. Well, you could sell like 5 or 6 of those out of a magazine, so you could take like $4 and flip it, and turn it into like 25. Why
Mhm.
that person didn't just go buy the magazine, I have no idea. But that's when I learned business. I think I was like, I don't even understand why you wouldn't go buy the whole magazine. I think I was selling them for like, because really they just wanted that picture. So it's like you were buying the $5 magazine, you were selling the picture for $2. So it was actually beneficial to them, because if they just wanted that
Right,
picture, why would they spend five? They would spend
right.
two.
Waste of $3.
So, but there was there was someone in that magazine for everyone. So if 6 or 7 people would give you $2, it was cheaper than the magazine, and you would make a profit. And I
Mhm.
remember doing a little bit of that kind of stuff. So that's what I remember. What else do you remember?
Mm. I don't know. I just remember the bracelets and the selling the stuff at school. I mean, that was funny. And then your lemonade stand. But
Yeah.
then, my next recollection is, us talking about you going into real estate.
Yeah. So that was actually my next question. So why'd you suggest real estate? I remember sitting down at one time, I was about 21-ish, 22, and I was like, I want to make a good income, but I don't want to go to school, obviously. So what made you say real estate?
I didn't, well, I said if, it's obvious you don't want to go to school and that's not where you're going, and everything you don't need to go to school for. But I said, but if you want to make a good enough income to say that you're, you know, successful in finance, enough finance maybe to buy a house and, live, you're going to have to start at the bottom and you're going to have to work up, and it's going to have to be something that has good management. So it's, a Lowe's, Home Depot, Costco. And I said, or, you could start a construction company like we have, or you can be a real estate agent, and so we just kind of looked at that. It didn't take very long. And, once we said real estate agent, I was just blurting those out. It's like, that makes the most sense. You pass a test, you sell houses. It's, but to go get a construction company, you have to know the trade, or it will be nice for you to know the trade, or you're going to have to hire somebody and know that they're on your team to do that trade part of your business. And, I would rather go try to start being a realtor than start at the bottom of, a company and become the manager. But that's what it was. You're going to have to decide what line of work. If you want to be a manager somewhere, you're going to have to go to the place of business that you want to work in, whether it's food, retail, clothing, construction products. You're going to have to figure out what that is, and then you're going to have to work up the ladder.
It's
But
just so
we chose real estate.
it's so weird that that's what you said. I just look back and know now it being 17 years in the past, you know, I get chills actually thinking of it right now. Like I actually want to cry, because it's just like something where you're like, man, like God really had a plan.
Mm-hmm.
You just really see it, and you're like, you took someone who just didn't understand school,
Mm-hmm.
had parents that didn't understand school, where they went and
That was
started
pretty smart, though. Book
I,
smart.
that is true. We should be fair. He is. That is true. So, but it's just something where it's just like, if I was just I have these conversations, like I think of this all the time, like, nurture versus nature type stuff. Like, are people just like, do they grow into what they're around, or are they born that way? Right. Like that's a thought process I have all the time. And I'm just like super thankful, because I couldn't imagine being born into a house where like you were the principal of the school.
Mm-hmm.
Cause then I would just be like the kid who's like, oh wow, isn't that interesting though? How like you could take the same kid And if the expectations of the parents are like, they're the principal of the school and you know,
If my parents were the principals of the school, I still couldn't have learned the books.
but you get what I'm saying. No, that's not what I'm saying though. That
Okay.
I would have been an embarrassment maybe
Oh yeah.
if you had different expectations on me. It just shows
Right.
you like a kid comes into this world and they have expectations of a parent and they have friends group that might judge them because that kid is different than like what the parent expectations on them are. And it just shows you that like if you were something different in life, there might have been different expectations. I would have came into the world the same person, and your expectations on me might have been something where I look
Right.
back on my life right now and always thought I was a failure. I mean, you
Mhm.
talk to some people who legitimately like think that they're a failure to their like parents.
Mhm.
And I'm
Wow.
thankful that like that thought process like has never once even entered into my brain that I would have thought that like, oh, that they weren't like proud of me or that they weren't encouraging me. Definitely still things I think that I do wrong all the time that I think like that I think that you pray for me for. But like there's never, I don't think like you look at me as a whole and say like, oh man, like that was a disappointment. I really think there's, and not saying that there's some people out there that really think that their parents think that of them.
That's sad.
And it's really sad. So I'm just thankful that like I was born into a household that was able to appreciate this.
Yeah.
Right.
I enjoyed every minute of raising you guys.
So let me ask you another question because you were one of the first people, and I waited probably 2 to 3 years longer, but you were one of the first people that told me that I should have a YouTube channel, not necessarily a podcast like I do now,
Right.
but you were one of the first people that said, "Hey, Chris, you should have like a YouTube channel." I know you'd watch some stuff on YouTube. What made you actually suggest that a few years ago? And now I remember talking to you last week. I was like, "Wish I would have started this thing earlier." What made you suggest
Um,
that?
you know what? Just we were doing AgentXcel at the time, and I just knew that you needed a presence out there, that you needed to get people to follow you, to listen to you. I just know you networking, anything to network, and that's what it is. Everything's online. That's where people are learning stuff. Your name would get out there. I knew you wanted to build business. I don't know, we didn't know exactly what direction your direction, it's kind of changed, and everybody's does. You just kind of go out there in the opportunities way, do what you know, and you grow with it. Hopefully the Lord's talking to you and you're listening, because your life will be a lot better if you go on that road, because some things can look successful sometimes and they're not nothing you're even supposed to be doing. But I just remember, tell me my question again, Chris.
So it was why
So
you told me to start the YouTube
right.
channel. Like
So
that's what you
just for
specifically said.
networking, getting your name out there, getting people to follow you. We were doing AgentXcel. I knew that then people would start listening to you. We could start handing stuff out. So it started us going to do one other, and I won't mention that here because that's not the program now, but we were going a direction with something in business. And in return, it went another direction. It went
Yeah.
here, and it's where Chris is today. But still, it started off by us pounding. And I'd actually say that's, I think, when Christopher actually learned how to honestly pound,
Yeah.
because he wasn't pounding before then.
Yeah.
And after that 2 or 3 months, the pound came in, but that's a different story. But that right there, I knew what we were trying to build, and I knew that we wanted a presence. Christopher is a very good talker. His analogies are in sports. I was doing something the other day, Christopher. I wished I could remember it, but I was talking to you without talking to you, and
Uh-huh.
thought I said it in a sports analogy. And like, I just answered Christopher how he. But so, and it's very unique, and so it's something that the Lord's given you, because it's very unique, and He can relate His business and use, you know, sports analogies. So I just needed that you needed that presence out there, and that's where it was happening. It was happening on YouTube. See, like I know you do Instagram stuff, I'm fine with that, but in my business world and in finances, you're going to be on Twitter. And I know
Yeah.
we had that different debate, but so there's, and I so that I knew there was different social medias. And with all that said, y'all, I ain't on social media.
Yeah.
So, but I know that, and I've learned by going on YouTube and doing some other things, because I don't read. I do read now, but I don't do. I don't do learning that way through learning books. But yeah, I just knew that you needed that presence. You were a good speaker. You had something to offer, and we were going with AgentXcel direction. I wanted you to have that exposure and get people following you.
It's interesting when your like 50-year-old mom calls you and she's like, "Hey,
go
you."
10 years, go deck. Oh, maybe then.
No,
Okay,
I'm talking about like it was like 4 years ago or something where you
yeah,
were really like, you need to have a YouTube channel,
right.
right? And just
Mhm.
interesting how like your 49, 50-year-old mom is the one suggesting to you YouTube. And I'm like, what? Like I didn't have an Instagram at the time, right? And so, but thank you for that. I actually was talking to you on the phone the other day and I was like, I should have started that earlier. But that is almost everything in life.
So do you put this on YouTube after you're done?
We do, and I'll note this now. I have no like this. I have a filter on Zoom right now that I could not get off. Like if you're listening, you won't understand this, but my face looks so smooth because my wife, I think, did a recording while I was out of town and used some type of filter. And I looked at myself and I was like, this is not what my face normally looks like. So
I
anybody
want them
that
to put the
if
filter on my side.
if anybody is gonna reach out to me and ask for any like tips on why I look so youthful, it's because this is not what my face looks like. So please don't ask because this isn't it. Um, okay, so let's end it with this, mother.
Okay.
And you had mentioned this. I had a note that said "Get in Opportunity's Way." It's something I did a podcast on this probably about 2-3 weeks ago, and
Yes.
I was teaching up like the podcast was you, and I was talking about getting opportunities way, and my mother teaching this at a young age. And my podcast though was now I try to get in bigger opportunities way, meaning I learned it at a very small stage where it was like get in little opportunities way, and it scaled. Now I'm like looking at how do I get in like bigger opportunities, like how can I knock on that door now that's like $1 million a year door, right? Like that one door like changes your whole entire like world. And so that was the podcast was getting opportunities way, but that was you talking to me. And do you remember being on do you actually remember driving on the freeway with me that day on the 101, or do you just remember stories of the story?
We weren't on the 101. We were on the 10 and we were heading eastbound.
You sure? Because I feel like we were on the 101.
I know, but you were young.
Okay. Tell
We
tell the
were on the
story.
10. And that's just, remembering, because when you're remembering stuff, you can't remember everything.
Yeah,
And it wasn't that important back then. You didn't know it was going to play this in your life. When that
sure.
was said to you, you didn't know that that's what it was going to do. So that's not what, but I still feel like that incident, certain things that I can remember exactly how, and it's so significant. I know it was part of the puzzle and the God moment, and it was supposed to be that we were heading eastbound on 10. And I don't know how far we were into it. It was, I don't know if we were just doing you just passed or whatever, but I looked at you and I said, Christopher, look out the window. And you're just like dumbfounded, kind of like, I'm like, just look out the window. Looked out the window. I said, what do you see? There's houses. I said, and I just prompted him, like, there's just thousands and thousands of houses out there. All you got to do is go get yours. But then a little bit further, it's just the key points of it is don't think about what you're making, not just this day, but just don't think about what you're making on that one sell or deal or client you're working on. It's what are you making at the end, and was it worth it? So just go out there, work hard, find out what your niche is if you have a niche. And no matter what your niche is, referrals. Don't work in vain. Don't spin your wheels. If you already got them, they like you, keep them.
Yeah.
And so, but it was that, and it was just what's out there, and just go get an opportunities way. Because I remember lots of stories. I'll tell one. I remember a 91-day knock on the door. What can I do to get business? What can I do? I was still in real estate. I'm like, 91 days. I pulled the 91 days. You went knocking. I did something else. And remember getting that phone call. Nothing happened. But what happened when you got home? Somebody called me, Mom. It wasn't from the 91 days, but it just works. Just go out and find out. If you have a niche, work on it. If not, work on a little bit of everything and just go out and work, and then get an opportunities way. You're not going to sell anything or do anything sitting in your house and not putting your pants on.
Yeah. Yeah,
So,
that one changed the course of my career. And not that I implemented it that quickly, but I've always heard it at each stage of my career. And I remember, first year was 6 homes, and then it was 12, and then it was 15, and it was 22, so like I try to really like capture that now. I really try to capture it now because I'm so thankful.
and it wasn't a time when nobody was selling houses. It was the short sell era.
Yeah, I'm super thankful. And I mentioned this a lot on the podcast, and I want to bring it up now. But as I tell stories about myself, I always will bring up that there's no, please no, like super flawed, trying
Mhm.
to just, you know what I mean? I have to manage things, right? So like as I tell these stories, I always want people to know I'm telling this I'm just, this is just kind of like a documentary of me speaking out loud. And I wanted to bring you on so that people could, sometimes people who've just met me, 3 months ago,
Mhm.
they see, you know, Chris in the 17th season,
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
I wanted to bring you on and bring on that season 1 and season 3 and season 6.
Mhm.
And there was a lot of grit and a lot of work to that. I'm still gritty. Like whatever mission I am on, it's sometimes different, but like whatever mission I'm on in real estate, I'm really still gritty. I'm still let's get after it. I'm very
Grinder. Mhm.
passionate about it. I'm very driven about it. The people around me can be like, dude, chill, right? Like when I'm on a mission, I'm on a mission, but that's so you, right? That's
Mhm.
so you. Like I think like you always say it, like I do it in maybe like a male version. You bring that
Yeah,
up a lot, like, hey, like we're so much of the
we
same, but
are
like,
different.
but that's, I'm just super thankful. Like I just think of just, you know, I just, I always had a big plan in my head, and to start seeing it happen,
Mhm.
it's just really like fun. And but
Yeah.
I just think back on just like I remember still being sophomore, junior, and being the one that didn't raise my hand, because when
Mhm.
they said like, "Hey, who's going?" Like it was an ASU recruit coming into our marketing class, and like, "Hey, who's going to college?" And everyone raised their hand but me. And I mean, that I wish I knew who that lady was, because I was fueled off of spite and I've said this many times. I was fueled off spite for about 12 to 13 years of my career. Meaning, I want to clear that up. Like I had this in my fuel tank of these people who were like, "You're not gonna make it. You're not gonna make it." And that actually fueled me. And I have to say, I woke up one day, and this was in prayer, that like that wasn't going to serve me any longer, right? And not that it ever did, but like it was just something I felt God was saying, like, "Hey, like this whole like pocketing up these moments and like putting them in your gas tank and doing it off that, like you actually, when you're in that zone, like I said, through prayer, when you're in that zone, you could be going in a direction that's proving someone wrong, but proving also you wrong. Meaning you might look at them one day and say I was right, but you might look in the mirror one day and say I don't know if I wanted to be right.
You're the wrong
So I had to
direction.
start taking that and saying like I need to be fueled by something a little bit different. But I just
Mhm.
remember that recruiter just looking at me and just the disappointment. And like I can still remember that and thinking like, ah, man, like there's got to be a place for a young guy like me, right? Like there's got to be a zone. And I'm just thankful I found it. I'll always say that real estate was something that raised me. Like I feel like the industry in itself raised me, and I'm super thankful for it. But Ma, I know this show is a lot about you and a lot about me, but I wanted to bring your story in because usually I'm doing a show with a guest and talking about them. But I wanted to bring you in because you have a super, super cool story. I'm so proud of you, all
Mhm.
that you've accomplished. I'm thankful for you. I love you. And I wanted to bring me in with some stuff because I think it's the weird combination with me being the host, you being the guest. And there was a lot of things that you could bring up about 17 years ago or 39 years. Huh? We're getting old. So,
Yeah.
but any last parting words that you'd like to say before we end?
No, it's just I love you and I'm very proud of you and I'd be proud of
Thank
you no
you.
matter what and always follow Jesus.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Well, let's end there. I love you, mother, and that's another show.
I love you too.
Bye.
Thanks. Bye.